All right, today on the show, I have my author neighbor here, MT Zimny, who I'm holding one of her new books in my hand. And she has also written the Apex Cycle, which I found out has the same cover artist. And I wanted to hear more about that journey since this cover is very different from those books.
Yeah. So my cover artist for all of my books, all five books, if you include the one that's coming out in September, is Maria Monlock. And what's super cool about Maria is these are actually the only book covers she's ever done. She's actually a theme park designer for Warner Brothers. So if you go to Six
Nice.
Flags and meet the Justice League, she did the costume design for a ton of them. She's super cool like that. Love her to death. Met her in college doing improv comedy because we were really, really cool. Um, but when we sat down and worked together on the Apex Cycle covers, I knew it was going to one. I knew she could do it because she's a very talented artist. But she's more of like a character and landscape artist, and I was asking for skyscrapers. So it was definitely a learning curve for both of us. We actually have two different versions of the first book's cover. I think I have, yep. So this is how it currently is, but this is the original version. So you can kind of see how she stepped up her game because what happened
Cool.
was after I commissioned her to do the sequel, she went and she did like a ton of tutorials. And then she's like, well, this looks way cooler than this. So then we redid the first one to sort of match it in vibes. But that was like a super fun process and journey to go on with her. And then with oh, my books are falling behind me now. With the Apex Cycle, that's fine. I'm gonna set them there. We wanted to encapsulate the fact that it takes place in a city. It's a floating island city that's very Seattle inspired, but then there's also Greco-Roman vibes within the story. And I wanted that to also shine through. She does the typeface as well. So
Okay. On
this
all the
cool,
covers?
yeah. So all
Okay.
these cool typefaces, that's her. Same with like Sculptera. Like, she's awesome. Um, But I feel like she nails the vibes for the Apex Cycle. But with Sculptera, it's a completely different story, very different setting. It's a portal fantasy where main character from our world ends up in a steampunk fantasy world. Um, and she's going through the wilderness of the steampunk fantasy world as well. So it's like a fun blend of steampunk and just like fantasy quest. And she absolutely nails the vibes of that too. With Sculptera, the main character is only in Sculptera at night, typically. So that's why the cover is nighttime. And then she just finished the cover for Keldori by Daybreak, which is the sequel to Sculptera by Nightmare. And you can find that cover on my Instagram. It's beautiful. With every cover she does, I'm just like more and more impressed.
Yeah, I actually just looked up that cover and I thought it was really cool because you have like the night look on this one and then that one is very bright white gold
Yeah.
lettering. So excited to see that book in the wild. If you could tell everyone what a little bit more about Skullterra. I know you mentioned steampunk and I know you mentioned wilderness, but if you want to give us even more
Yeah.
of a rundown, that'd be great.
So, Skelterra by Nightmare focuses on a recent high school grad named Ren, and Ren wants to be a volcanologist, but she's been waitlisted at her dream college. And while she's trying to focus on getting off that waitlist and into the program that she so desperately wants, she's a bit distracted because every single night magicians in the world of Skelterra sort of drag her consciousness into their world where she pilots a blue haired living weapon version of herself, and she is tasked with keeping the flirty villain from breaking through the barrier between worlds and destroying everything. And she's so mad at everyone about it.
Okay. No, that sounds awesome. I love that you're doing a Portal fantasy. I don't think I've had anyone on who, yeah, I don't think I've had anyone on, nor do I talk to many authors in the indie space who are writing Portal
Yeah.
fantasy. So, were there any particular inspirations for that, or was it just something that popped into your
Um,
head?
I like if I was to go like all the way back to like the first like kernel nugget of inspiration, it would be like all the way back in college. When I I kept like a dream journal, super fun to do. Don't recommend. They get really weird.
Nice.
Um, and so like as the summer went on, the dreams would get weirder and weirder, which is like common if you keep a dream journal. And then I was like, oh, I guess like a whole new world. And like, what if we had a character who had dream powers? And like, that's like super derivative, I feel like. But I kind of like put it like on the back burner of my brain. And then I ended up traveling Europe with my then boyfriend, now husband, after graduation. And we were on a train going through France. And I was like, what if it, what if someone, when she's sleeping, she goes to France? And I'm like, that would be the coolest concept ever. And then I'm like, I don't know anything about France. I don't know French. I don't know. I don't. I barely know where Paris is, and I was just there. Um, so again, it kind of took like another step. Like, okay, well, I can make up a fantasy world, and so that's sort of where did that idea really began to fester, I think is a good word. And then as I was writing the Apex cycle, it was just marinating in the back of my brain for years. So then as I start, looking towards the end of the Apex cycle, it started taking on a life of its own back in my head. Um, like what realistically would a dream world look like? I don't want it to be a dream world again. That's very derivative. I want it to be a real world that she's going to in her dreams and she can control her own like magic body. And that's sort of what it is.
Oh, I love that. No, that's very interesting. And I feel like there's a Stephen King quote I'm probably butchering, but he said something about like the brain is a great sifter of bad ideas, and like the good ideas stick around and the bad ones don't.
Yeah.
And also when he elaborated on it, and I agree with this, is like you'll have these little kernels of ideas, and then like the pieces of them that don't work go away, and then the pieces
Yeah.
of them that do stay, and then you kind of need them together with other things. So it's cool to
Yeah.
hear you validate that thought that's been in my head about my own stuff for a long time. So that's really interesting. And were there any other like kernels of other potential books that you ended up just putting in this instead because it worked better?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I really wanted the apex cycle to be enemies to lovers.
Okay.
But then the enemy, he was just absolutely just the perfect sweetheart cinnamon roll boy. So it was not at all enemies to lovers. If anyone has read the Apex cycle, they would know it's Wesley. There is not a mean bone in Wesley's body. He would die for Samantha. Um, in fact, to in order to create the conflict that I wanted the enemy aspect of Wesley to create, I had to invent a whole extra character who is just like
Oh,
this
interesting.
little bully. And again, it's Anderson for anyone who has read the Apex cycle. So uh, when I jumped into Skullterra by Nightmare, I was like, okay, enemies to lovers. uh, so it got to do that, which is also fun because the Apex cycle, the enemy, he's not likable. He's funny, but he's like not a villain that you can be like, yeah, woohoo. He's got a problem with like grooming children.
Oh
So
no.
I was like, I want an enemy who's like fun, a villain who's like flirty, but like we can get behind it because he's age appropriate, and that 100% fed into Skullterra by Nightmare.
Okay. I appreciate that when you were writing the Apex cycle, that you were willing to stick with what the story was telling you versus
Yeah.
forcing it to go a different direction.
Yeah. There's fun aspects of conflict that I like pop up with Sammy and Wesley in the Apex cycle because even though he was not like an enemies to lovers, it was much more friends to lover. Like some of the things that I did want conflict from him for, like they still work, and I think it added depth to their friendship too because like realistically what friend are we going to get along with 100% of the time? um so it worked out for the better.
Okay, well, since we have talked about the Apex cycle a fair amount, if you could share us the blurb rundown of what that story is. I've heard your Comic Con booth pitch,
I
so
know. You
share that
probably
with us
it's
here.
well oiled. So Sammy is a completely ordinary girl living in a world of superhumans, and her roommate gets kidnapped by supervillains. She does not know why or what these supervillains want all these kids they're kidnapping for, but Sammy is one of their targets, and she is determined to help get her roommate back, and she's determined to keep herself from getting kidnapped. So now she's trying to join the secret superhero team that her history teacher runs out of the high school to sort of aid in these endeavors. And everything goes sideways from there. She never gets superpowers. That's always, everyone's like super like snarky, like, oh yeah, I bet the twist is she gets superpowers. No, she doesn't. The twists are weirder than that, I promise you. Um, and by book two, there's like several other genres that have popped up that I can't talk about because they're big spoilers.
Okay, okay, fair, fair. No, I remember you, there was something with your pitch about teenagers being horrible at their jobs. I remember that
Yes.
part.
That's like my hook. When like no one's stopping to talk, I'll start yelling that at people like, hey, you like teenagers who suck at their jobs? Um, and I'm able to make it work for both Apex Cycle and Skullterra because Sammy and Ren both kind of suck at their jobs for different reasons. Like Sammy's horrifically underqualified and Ren just does not want to be there. So it's fun. It's going to work
Fair.
for my next book too. I'm excited.
So this, I have book one here. I know book two's coming. Is this a trilogy as well, or is this,
Duology.
it's a duology? Okay, so it
Yeah.
all wraps up. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
said, you said next book. Is it another book in one of these existing universe after the
No.
second one? It's a whole new thing. Okay,
Whole
love it,
new
love it.
thing. It will be a standalone. Definitely different from what I've written. Um, it will be vampires in Spokane,
Oh, cool.
and it's going to be more of a comedy horror romp. Um, I haven't talked too much about the main premise, but here's the exclusive scoop just for Brian Apple's page. It will be about a pizza store worker who is kidnapped by a vampire who craves garlic bread instead of blood. Um, and he is hoping he can get this pizza store worker to help him create a vampire safe garlic bread. Meanwhile, he has broken free of the vampire hive mind of Spokane, Washington, and the main vampire is very mad about it. So our poor pizza store worker, who again, teenager who sucks at her job, uh, finds herself in the middle of all this. It's going to be very fun.
Well, I appreciate that Spokane is the setting because my grandma lived there and I used to go there
Oh,
all the time. So very familiar with that city.
I went to college there, so
Okay.
uh, and again, I got Maria Monlock working on the cover, and she was so excited because we met at college, and I was like, "Vampires in Spokane," and she was like, "Yes." So we're very excited.
What did you go to Gonzaga or was it a different school out there?
Gonzaga, yep, go
Nice.
Zags. All three of my siblings went there. My sister-in-law went there, and my husband. So
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, it's a great school.
yeah,
My nephew's actually looking at going there. So,
nice. Yeah, it was a good time. So I liked the improv group.
did you do any creative writing classes or did you start to really build your skill as a writer while you were there or was it afterwards?
So yes and no, because I was actually really into theater. So my major was human physiology. I am a STEM girly, but I minored in theater, and one of the classes I took as a theater minor was playwriting. That's the only creative writing class I took, but I incorporate things I learned in that class into my own process as a writer like every day. I often get told that people love my dialogue. My narrator, Elizabeth Phillips, constantly tells me how much she loves my dialogue. And I'm like, well, yeah, because the only the only creative writing class I've ever taken was playwriting. It's all dialogue. um, but I think there is a lot we can learn from theater in terms of writing like a novel. Um, because when you study plays, you get to the nitty-gritty of character motivations, emotional beats, how to string a story together in a way that keeps the audience invested for 2.5 hours. Uh, it tells you a lot about how to create an interesting story and an interesting scene. And then with the improv, especially, you do 4 years of very fast scene work because I did short form improv as opposed to long form improv. So my scenes were typically 3 to 5 minutes, and you get immediate feedback on if your scene is good and interesting. You learn quick. You learn quick what keeps an audience invested in a scene. Um, and then what's a book if not 50 short form improv pages scenes strung together? So
Okay, that's very valid, and that is interesting to hear because yeah, when you're doing improv, I mean, it's like trial by fire. So, um, have you kept in touch with any of those people to be beta readers at all for you?
s- not to be beta readers, a couple of artists, including Maria, who does my covers. I have a lot of character art that was done by someone else. Her name's Gigi. Her artist handle is Gigi Draws. I'll just pan over. My husband commissioned her to do the Apex Cycle characters for my birthday a few
Oh,
years ago. So
that's
that's just
fun.
like, he printed it out like way too big. So it's massive on our wall, but I absolutely love it. And then a few other people from improv have like read the book, enjoyed the books. A few people from theater. There was one girl, she was one of my first readers. She didn't beta read, but when I came out with my first book, she was buying it day one, and we weren't super close. She was a dancer. I was a theater kid. But she said that she knew she needed to read it because we would watch Doctor Who together in college, and I would guess every plot twist. Um,
Oh,
so
interesting.
she was like, I knew there was going to be good plot twists because you always knew the plot twist ahead of time, Doctor Who. And she has consistently bought all of my books. Oh, my dog just sneezed.
That's
So,
fine.
um,
Hap Yeah, okay. That's cool that you still keep in touch and the idea that you were someone who can guess the plot endings. My mom is one of those people with that
yeah,
superpower. So,
nice. Yeah, my husband and I, we try to like outguess each other. It gets obnoxious, but we love it. Although I guess my husband, I met him in improv too, and he's always one of my beta readers. So um,
okay.
I feel like a lot of authors I've heard say that their spouse doesn't read their books, but my husband has read all of them. So I feel really lucky.
Oh, good. Yeah, I didn't realize that was the case. I assumed they always, read them.
No,
So,
I,
wow, news to me.
I
That's
know.
kind of funny.
A lot of people they're like, I would never expect my husband to read him. Like, I expect mine to, and he's going to tell me everything that's wrong with it because that man has no filter, and he's going to be honest because he doesn't want me to embarrass myself. He's probably my meanest beta reader, if I'm honest.
That's my wife actually because she's not
Nice.
like a big fantasy fan. She's not super
Mm,
into the genres I write.
yeah,
So she has a very unique lens and she's very focused on if the story's coming across
yeah,
and if she can visually see what I'm writing. So she actually fixed my
yeah.
combat for me. My combat was too slow
Oh,
the way I
interesting.
was writing it. Yeah. And then she was like, you need to write shorter sentences and make it faster because this
Mm,
is happening too slow. And I was like, oh, interesting. And it totally fixed it. So, um,
right.
verbally abusive spouses are the way to go if you want
I
good beta
know.
readers.
Well, it helps that I write YA, so my characters are all teenagers, and my husband's a high school math teacher.
Mm.
So
He's
he's
in
fun.
tune. He is in tune.
Oh yeah. So he's he's he gets it.
That's a great filter to have. That's kind of like a little secret agent because kids,
Yeah.
their tastes change all the time. So,
Oh yeah. Well, it was funny because also like his perspective as someone who's in a classroom every day. And then my first book came out in 2020, so COVID. Then my second book came out in 2021, and he was beta reading for that. And they were back in the classroom by 2021, but they were still doing social distancing. So all the desks had to be 6 feet apart. And there's a scene in Delta where one character sort of like reaches over and like puts her hand on the knee of another character under the desk. And my husband looks at me and he goes, how long are her arms? How is she reaching that far? And I was like, there's no COVID. There's no COVID. There's no social distancing. They're right next to each other. And he just goes, oh, oh yeah.
man, that
So,
was such a weird time for sure.
oh, it really was.
But it birthed a lot of authors. I published my
It
book
did.
in
It did.
2020 as well. So you were a theater kid, and then
Yeah.
you got into creative writing. What made you finally say like, was there a certain book or a certain person that made you finally say, I have a story and I want to publish it and share it with everybody?
Yeah, so it's funny because I did theater and then got into creative writing, but realistically, I've always like the cliche, I've always been a writer. I mean, like I remember in 3rd grade, like writing out fan fiction to my favorite books. I spent all of the summer between 7th and 8th grade with the lap desk I got for my birthday in June, along with my iPod, the the iPod Nano, and I had one CD uploaded to it, and it was the Pirates of the Caribbean 3 soundtrack, and I
Oh,
played
nice.
that on repeat. I think it was like 13 songs. I played it on repeat and just hand wrote all summer long. So I've always loved storytelling, and I've always loved writing. It's just like, and I think it was my senior year. It was my senior year of high school. We had a visit from Marissa Meyer, who's also localish, and she wrote the Lunar Chronicles. And
Okay.
she had just released her first book. She had just debuted, and now they're like New York Times bestsellers. And she's very well known. But she came to talk to my high school, and I remember turning to my friend being like, "I'm going to be an author." And my friend was like, "Okay, Mary." Um, so it was something like I always wanted to do, and theater through college kind of just like filled like that storytelling need. Um, because there's a wonderful thing to like collaborative storytelling. And as much as I love theater, I did get a little burnt out by the collaborative part by the end. You'll hear a lot of people talk about theater kids being a type of way, and they're not wrong. And I was one of them. So like I'm not afraid to admit I was part of the problem. But you graduate and you're like, well, that was fun. I want to tell stories on my own now. And it was actually my husband who, oh gosh, were we even engaged at the time? No, we weren't. We were still dating. And he was back in school to get his master's in teaching because he actually majored in engineering and was like, oh, this sucks. Um, so he went to get his master's in teaching and he was doing student teaching. And he was like, like, I know I don't come home to like super, super late. But you've always wanted to write a book. Like you should write a book. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, maybe." And I was commuting part-time on the Seattle ferry boat, which like is nice. The ferry boats are nice, but also it was the Bremerton boat before the fast ferry existed, so it was like an hour.
Ooh, okay, yeah,
Uh,
that's the old one. Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, so it was like an hour, and then I would walk to like Westlake Plaza, where I worked in the medical dental building.
Oh,
um,
really? Okay, nice.
yeah, I was a PT aide for physical therapy. Um, And then I got another job that was much better doing stuff that was actually like more meaningful than being an aide at Fred Hutch, the Cancer Research Center. I was an oncology data specialist, working in the cancer registry. And so, a lot of cancer, a lot of PT stuff, a lot of commuting. I was like, yeah, I could write a book. I have time to write a book. Um, and just kind of like that feeling of taking that boat into Seattle and just feeling like a baby because you're 22, you are a baby, um, and just absolutely just overwhelmed and intimidated by everything going on. And I just wanted to put that into a book. And that's, the first chapter of my first book in the Apex cycle is on a ferry. So but my husband was the one who was finally like, "You should just write a book. Like, you always say you wanna write a book, so just do it." And I was like, "Fine, God."
That it's funny that that happened, because I know for me, I had been, like, off and on writing my first book, and then we're about to have my daughter in 2020, and my wife's like, "You gotta finish that thing because once we have a kid, you're never gonna finish it." So,
Yeah.
I like how, so my last guest, we, aligned on our bookshelves. I feel like we're aligning on our spousal
Sure.
input
Yeah.
on this one. It's
Sounds
good.
that's really funny.
It's just yeah, but it's good though. You need those things because if she hadn't said that, I probably wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have books. I
Sure.
wouldn't have all these friends in the
Yeah.
author community, which is really fun. Like I love seeing
Right.
all of us, grow and come out with new books. So
Right.
it's really really cool.
Well, it's hard to believe in yourself sometimes, but our spouses, like, their job is to see the absolute best in us, or it should be their job. So, I think they believe in us before we believe in ourselves, and we don't wanna disappoint them, so
Yeah, yeah. No, it's very very accurate. So you mentioned the ferry, and you mentioned the opening part of your cycle takes or the remind me the name again. I
Apex
know
cycle.
Apex Cycle.
Yeah.
Apologies. I was
You're
about to
good.
say the Beta Cycle, and I'm like, no, Beta's the first book.
Yeah.
It opens on the ferry. Did the rest of the scenery also, like, does it take place in Seattle, or is it like a fictional city? What's the story there?
It's a fictional city called New Delos. It is implied to be off the coast of Washington. It is it's floating, but the floating is an illusion. It's built on like a big pillar in the ocean. And my inspirations for it were Seattle, a little bit of Spokane, and actually London, where I studied abroad for a little bit in college. Um, and it it definitely leans mostly Seattle. I think the London and Spokane aspects come from very specific locales within New Delos, including the the school campus. Is going to be is just kind of set up like Gonzaga's,
Nice.
down to like there's a fountain in the front with a statue, and it's like at Gonzaga it's Saint Ignatius in the statue. At New Delos Prep, it's a superhero, but basically the same thing, right? Um, and then there's a museum in New Delos, and I very much imagine like the British Museum. So it's a little bit of everything, but for the most part, it's very very Seattle. There's a Ferris wheel that they go on, and if you've been to Seattle's waterfront, you know there's the Ferris wheel there. They've got like an industrial district with all of the big cargo containers that we get to go to a little bit. Um, so yeah, it one character mentions putting cream cheese on his hot dogs. Um,
There we go. Okay.
Yep, yep. And then there are slight references to Chihuly, who's, of course, Dale Chihuly, the glass artist from Tacoma, but everywhere in Seattle has a Chihuly. Um, and then actually by the third book, they are seeking shelter. Where's my third book? I'll pull it from my pile of slanted books up here. And the third book, they start in a different island. It's a farm island that's not New Delos. And oh gosh, McMillan Island, and Quarry Bay, and that is just a knockoff of San Juan Island and Friday Harbor. Um,
Okay.
because if you go to San Juan Island, the McMillans were like a big lime family, like limestone, and Quarry Bay is yeah, it's all kind of connected. So and there's like orcas in the distance. It's very very Pacific Northwest. Um, but then the other thing with New Delos is the name. Delos is spelled Delos. And if you are familiar with your Greek islands, you know that there's the Greek island of Delos, spelt the same way. And according to Greek mythology, that is where Artemis and Apollo were born. And so I like the idea of this city of superhumans being named after a island that was the birthplace of gods. And then because we're America, we don't say it right. So it's spelt the same but pronounced different.
Interesting. Have you been to the Greek islands? I know you've done a fair amount of
No,
European travel. So,
it's been on my list for a very long time, but you know how it is when you're an author and you have a small child.
oh yeah, yeah, I've
Yeah,
got two, and
yeah,
my pace of release schedule has slowed down
yeah,
significantly.
yeah. It's
So,
I love traveling. Would love to hit the Greek islands someday. It's just like you need there. It takes a long time to get there.
okay.
Because it's all the way from this side of the states. You know, it's going to be like 2 to 3 plane rides, and then ferry rides, and they're not short ferry rides either. So and it's hard to just like find that time, um, and the money. But no, I've been lots of other places that are easier to access, like Iceland, which also is important to these books. And I did convince my husband to take me there, and my ulterior motive was book research. It was fine. We had fun.
Okay. Did you go to Reykjavik?
Yeah.
Okay,
It
my
was
wife and I made a pit stop there on our way back
oh,
from a
nice.
wedding in France. Yeah, it's a
Oh,
cool city.
I loved it. I loved every second I spent in Iceland. We were there. it was 2022, 2020, yeah, no, 2023, and it was February in the middle of a winter storm. So,
Oh, wow.
um, a lot of our excursions were canceled, but we had an absolute blast, and I absolutely loved every second I spent in Iceland, and I want to go back really bad.
Okay. I'm guessing you didn't get to go to the Blue Lagoon then because it was a winter storm.
So the Blue Lagoon was open, but we went to the Hidden Lagoon instead, which is a little less glamorous, a little more rustic. And I think this is just what the tour guide said. So if they're wrong, don't come at me. But they said that like the Blue Lagoon, like all of the thermal water, it is legitimate thermal water, but the Blue Lagoon water is like pumped in, and the Hidden Lagoon, um, it's like an actual true spring. Um, like that's just where the water is.
No, no, you're correct because I went to the reason we stopped, my wife wanted to go to the Blue Lagoon, and it's yeah, it
Yeah.
is, like, pumped in from, somewhere else,
Okay.
so you're accurate there.
Cool. Cool. They have a third one now too. Um, I think that one's like even I don't remember what it's called. It was yeah. But I really liked the Hidden Lagoon. We stopped there on our tour of the Golden Circle, which is just like a loop with waterfalls and geysers and springs. It was awesome.
So how did Iceland impact did it impact the Apex cycle, or did it impact, the newer series you have with Skalterra?
The Apex cycle. So there is a Viking element to the Apex cycle. Um, you've been my neighbor at events before, so you've seen my art where it has Samantha and she's holding like the Ulfbert sword. Like
Yep,
there's
yep.
Vikings play a very, very important role. And the final chapter of Epsilon actually takes place in Iceland. Um,
Oh, cool.
so I can't talk too much about how Iceland plays overall because it's like a big spoiler. Um, but it it was really cool to get to go. So
Uh,
I did,
okay, I
yeah,
nice. Yeah, I like that you, utilized, that vacation for book research, so it's
yeah,
a good tool and a good, cheat code to get to go to cool places, so
definitely.
okay, so one thing I did want to bring up was your writing process because
Mhm.
you have a trilogy completed.
Mhm.
You're about to do this duology, and you're going to get book number 6 up and running.
Yeah.
Um, how do you structure your writing process?
Ooh,
Like your
okay.
writing time, I guess. We'll start with your writing time. How do you structure your writing time?
It's changed drastically, month to month even, because I have a toddler. So for the Apex cycle, it was very much like my free time. I got to write. I was working at Fred Hutch and I had an hour-long break and I would just go to the cafe on campus and write for an hour and then go back to work, go home, write some. Like it was great. Um, and then by the time I was writing Epsilon, it changed a little because I was pregnant and I assume you've never been pregnant, Brian.
Not
Um,
that I'm aware of.
but it is exhausting. So I'd get off work and immediately fall asleep. And then, you have a baby. So Skulterra took a little bit longer to write. Epsilon came out about a month before I had my kid. Um, and then it was another, oh my gosh, 2 years, 2 years, 2.5 years ish until I could release Galterra. Um, wow, yeah, that's a long time. Um, and a lot of that was like you have a newborn and it's very hard to write. And when you get into postpartum depression, it's very hard to do things you enjoy. So it took a while, but I was able to start utilizing nap times. I would do writing sprints live on TikTok. That helped a lot. And then yeah, nap times, and then after bedtime. So I would put her down and then hang out with my husband for a little bit, and then he would go to sleep. And then from 9 to midnight, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna write. And then with Keldori by Daybreak, it's been even harder because she stopped napping.
Oh, no.
So, um, so so we've got that out now. Grandmas play a huge role in giving me time to write. Luckily,
Nice.
my mom and Connor's mom are both like within an hour and a half away, and they like to see our kids. So, um, that's kind of how time goes. These days, it's very much when I can. Um, and as we get closer to like Keldori coming out and, trying to finish it up and polish it off, it's like, okay, well, I need to like really buckle down. So a lot of late nights lately.
Okay, that's fair. I have kind of been in the same camp
Yeah.
between work and then the kids. And once I pick up the kids, it's like I can't really do much until they go to bed.
No,
So,
no.
you mentioned writing sprints on TikTok. I'm curious how that's presented and what like the structure of that is. Like, is it just you writing and then you're screen sharing like as you're writing? Like, how does that look?
It looks maybe a little bit cringy. It looks just like this. Except I am on my computer writing and I set a timer and I do invite people to join me and to write along with me so that they can work on getting their books. And because you have your phone loaded up and filming you, or if you're watching, your phone's loaded up and you're watching me, you don't go text your friends or scroll Instagram. Your phone is watching you, and all the people can see you if you slack off, which is like a big, a big part of it um, that I, enjoy and hate at the same time. But it gets the words done. So usually I would tell my writer friends like, "Oh, at this time I'm going to be live on TikTok." They joined. Oh, sorry.
No
And
worries.
then, yeah, every
Okay.
20 minutes or so, we stop and go, "How many words did you get done?" Uh, All right, let's go. So I do 2 or 3 rounds of that and hopefully get 1,000 words.
That's interesting that you're utilizing sort of the a bit of a pain point to give you the motivation because
Yeah.
Ian Fleming, who wrote James Bond,
Yeah.
his strategy, because he was trying, like back in the day, it's like you had to put out books quick because it was the only way
Yeah.
you got paid.
Yeah.
And his strategy was he would check himself into a hotel that he was willing to sleep at that was also kind of crappy and uncomfortable. And that way it would force him to finish the book because he's like, I can't check out till I'm done and
Right.
I don't want to be
Don't
here.
wanna be
And so it
here.
was like that was his motivation to get his books done was crappy
Prison.
hotels. I want to try it sometime and see
Yeah.
if it works, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
The other thing that's been working for me is I joined a writing group. Um, and it's just that, just writing. We read on occasion, but it's mostly just writing. And it's ran by Robin Hobb. And there is nothing more motivating to get words done than sitting across the table from Robin Hobb and being like, oh my God, if I'm not actively typing, she's going to judge me. She's not. She's like the nicest human you'll ever meet. But there's still like that little brain voice being like, don't make a fool of yourself in front of Robin Hobb. Don't do it. So that helps.
How many people are in the group when you guys meet up?
um, so it depends on the day. It meets pretty frequently, like 3 times a week. Um, And I think there's like upwards of 20 people, but it's kind of rotating because it's very much like show up if you can. So sometimes I'll go and there'll be like 10 people. Other times, like the other day, there was only 3 of us. Um, so it's fun, it's cozy, and everyone's really nice. Oh, that was my dog.
Nice. Always good to have a special guest. So
Yeah, the 2 of them are in here.
how did you get introduced to that writing group with Robin? That's a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, so her niece likes my books and is a pal. And I think technically we met via threads. And then I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be at Comic-Con 2025," so, like, last year. And she was like, "Cool, I'm gonna come say hi." And then she came and she bought all of my books, and I was like, "That's really nice of you, random gal from Threads." I didn't know who she was. Well, I knew who she was from Threads, but I didn't know who she was related to. And she bought my books, signed up for the arc of Skullterra. She liked them all. And then at Worldcon, she showed up and she's like, "Okay, I wanna buy Skullterra because I like the arc." And I was like, "Oh, super duper," like, you know, and then at some point in Worldcon, she mentioned she's like, "Oh yeah, Robin Hobb's my aunt," and I was like, "Oh, okay." I mean, I know she's local, so it makes sense. And then a few months later, she's like, "Hey, my aunt has ruined her writing group. You should email her." And I was like, "Oh my god." And then I asked my husband, I was like, should I? And he was like, yes. So she's really nice, super welcoming. So if you ever want to go down with me, she would be totally open to having you there. So
Okay. I need the motivation. It's been
yeah,
a bit of a tough track trying to finish this book and fix some of
yeah,
the issues I'm finding in it. So,
yeah. There's also something extremely motivating, and like reassuring to be sitting in a room full of writers, and one of the greatest fantasy writers at our time is going, "Oh, that's not gonna work," under her breath, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, so it's all of us." Like we all struggle. Writing's hard for everyone.
yeah, no, it is. And it's tough too to find good feedback because you are, like you're in the situation a lot of people are, where you're
Yes.
just trying to write and find these pockets to write. And if you're
Yeah.
not doing it, with the publisher who has the editor and all that, it's very hard to get the consistent feedback as you're doing it. So,
Yeah.
it can be tough if you don't have a group that can help you avoid making a mistake that then you just keep building on. So,
Yeah. I'm lucky where I have a couple of friends who early on in my writing career, I said, "Hey, your job is to make sure I never make a fool of myself. I don't want you to tell me empty nothings. I want you to tell me if my book is good or if it is bad. And if it is bad and you tell me it's good, that and I publish it, that is partially on you." Um, and so I have a couple of friends who, I mean, they're more like alpha readers than beta readers because like I'll just like load up a couple chapters in the working Google Doc and they read it as I go. And on occasion, I'll message them and be like, pretend that one part that you already read, pretend that didn't happen. Um, and I'll be like, oh, so that character that's been there for the last 50,000 words, just pretend she hasn't been, because I'm going to edit her out. And I don't feel like going back and doing that right now, but I'm not going to obviously keep moving forward with her there. They'll be like, okay, cool. Um, and I love having those friends because, like, when I write, these are big books. They take a long time to write. But I also am a very validation motivated person. Uh, so I need the one or two friends during the process, chapter by chapter, going, yeah, good job. um, and being honest and upfront about like that doesn't work, or that is stupid, or that is confusing. So
okay.
yeah.
Is there
How?
one piece of advice one of them has given you that has been like a big game changer for you early on?
Oh man, it's hard. That's hard to pin down, like because there's just different. One piece of advice.
Or if there's multiple. I'm happy to hear it all, but I'm
Yeah.
always curious to see if there's ones that really have stuck with you that have been like, wow, that thing you uncovered has really, changed this
Uh,
scene, this writing, or etc.
I mean, the one that comes to mind, it wasn't really like there's a character in the Apex cycle who I cannot say what relation this character has to our main character because it'll give away a big spoiler. Um, but my alpha reader, Melissa, she was reading the like first draft and she goes, "This is a really odd thing for someone who has this type of relationship to our main character to say. Like that's people in that form of relationship don't say that." And I was like, "Yes, you are right."
Interesting.
I was like, "You are so correct. Keep reading." Um, because yeah, a couple of chapters later, it's like something's revealed, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, no, that's okay. That makes sense now." And we kind of got to giggle about it because, yeah, I don't know. So I guess that I mean they're very good at just telling me like this is so confusing, Mary. I have no idea what's happening in this scene. And I'm like, great, perfect. That's exactly what I need to hear. Um, very good at like picking apart action, or like blocking and being like, oh, well, your character was over there 2 seconds ago. And now they're like, and I don't know how they made that transition. She's like, okay, thank you. Um, and there was one chapter in beta where there's a little bit of action and Melissa was like, it doesn't work. And I was like, okay. So I rewrote it again. She goes, "It still doesn't work." And I rewrote it again and again and again. And she's like, "I guess it's fine." And then I've had several people like, "Oh, that scene was so good." And I'm like, "Yeah, because I rewrote it 10 times to make Melissa happy." But that's also that's what I need Melissa to do. Or there was like another part in Skullterra where it's kind of the same thing. It's like, oh, like this bit of action kind of got lost in the narrative, and it's kind of a pivotal bit of action because you just like totally blew up a character. And I was like, okay, great. If I want obviously the reader to not glaze over that fact. And so then I went back and rewrote that to be like this big spectacular, um, like bit of action. It's so much better and beautiful now because they push me to be like, no, Mary, you can do better than that. Um, there was one instance though where you get like conflicting information from different beta readers. And that happened with Skullterra, and I thought I was losing my mind. Um, that also just speaks to every reader is going to like read something differently. But Ren alludes to graduation night, which happens before the events of the books, and you know something bad happened in the woods on graduation night. And so those first few chapters, she kind of like harkens back to it a few times. And I had two early readers, Melissa and my husband, who were like, "Oh my god, Mary, if I read the words graduation night one more time, I'm gonna throw your book." And I was like, "Noted, absolutely, totally hear ya. I'll dial it back." And then another reader, Haley, who's awesome. Her handles we are currently reading. She is such a cheerleader. She gets to the part where Ren finally goes over like what happened on graduation night. She bears it all, and Haley goes, "Yeah, that was fine. It kind of came out of nowhere." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like, and I was like, "Okay, that's fine." So then we have to like find the balance. Like, why do some readers feel so like overwhelmed and beat over the head by this information, and why do some miss it entirely? And it's like, well, I keep saying graduation night, graduation night, graduation night, but I'm not actually giving like I'm not expanding on that. I don't want to expand on it until it's time to like reveal the story, but I'm not expanding on Ren's feelings in a way that's significant enough for everyone to catch. Um, which is why I also felt the need to just say graduation night 10,000 times. Are you getting tired of hearing it yet? Um, so, I mean, even in that way, like when you have readers with very opposite ends of the spectrum advice, it's usually like, okay, there's an underlying problem that is causing both. And just trying to find what it is. And I think we nailed it. I hope we nailed it. So
Nice. Okay, yeah, that's an interesting one because foreshadowing can be tough, but also like building through
yeah,
foreshadowing, like building to that moment, but not just saying it. Like, how do we
yeah,
infer through the character's actions to like
right.
deliver that momentum? So that's some very, very good feedback that you got for that.
Yeah.
Has there been any feedback through the writing group you're in that has also been extremely helpful, like the one you just mentioned?
I haven't read that many times, because I haven't like passed my writing out to everyone yet.
Gotcha. Okay.
But there've been a couple of like reading days where we can go and read. Um, I think the best feedback I've gotten from that was there's a scene in the upcoming book where one character vomits directly into the mouth of another character. And the sounds that I heard from around the table were very validating. And I was like, yes, that is the reaction I want. We got it. So, because you don't want to, make it too graphic, but you also want to get the point across. And I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
the balance was found.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a fun one. It's fun when you can make people feel those cringes in real life. So,
Yeah. Well, it very much goes back to like the improv, like being able to see the in time reaction. Um, so
okay.
another,
I
I
love
like
it.
that type of validation.
Well, sticking kind of on this writing process train and going back, we had mentioned, how you find time. As far as
Yeah.
the way that structure your books, are you a big outliner? Are you more kind of like figuring out as you go along? Where does
Yeah.
your process lie in that spectrum?
I have a plan when I go in. I know where it starts, I know where it ends, and I know the important points we have to hit along the way. Sometimes we take little deviations, and sometimes the most fun plot points I find on accident. Um, so with Skullterra, we have Ren, who's half time in our world, half time in Skullterra. And when she's in Skullterra, they're on this journey to take this young magician from one location to another location where she'll be safe. Because if she dies, an evil magician is released from a glacier, and will wreak havoc across both worlds because of bloodline magic. Um, and she is helping them transport this girl. And I was like, they're being chased by the villain, but there's nothing like, I don't know, there wasn't, it was feeling really flat to me. Um, and I was getting really frustrated and kind of bored by it. And then I realized, I was like, oh wait, so like what if, and like the magic system was already in place for this to work without it being like out of left field, but like what if she accidentally tethers her mind to the villains and now he's also in her head, and this is how he's hunting them, is he's looking through her eyes at where they're going, and if she tells her allies, they will kill her, um so that she's not a liability. So now she's helping, but also keeping a secret that the villain's in her head because she doesn't want to die, but she also doesn't want to help the villain. And it made it so much more interesting. But when I first sat down to write Skullterra, like that wasn't a plot point. That wasn't even on my radar. Um, and we already had this perfect scene where she could like accidentally do the tethering. So it worked out really well, and it was a really, really, really fun plot point to discover. And then it plays a huge role going in to the next book because like he's still there, he's still in her head. Although their relationship dynamic has definitely shifted by that point. So that's just one example.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Well, we have had a very good chat getting all the different pieces of writing process. Is there any advice you would give with all the books you've written, with everything you've learned, to future indie authors who want to jump into space?
Um, write write for yourself. You need to write to an audience, but that audience, when you're first starting, at least should be you. If you like it, if you love what you're writing, there's someone else who's also going to love it. Um, I I hear a lot of people say if you're bored by your writing, that's normal. It's because you've read it 10 times. If you're bored by your writing, it might be boring, is the other thing. Um, and that's what I have found. My scenes where I'm like bored writing, I'm bored writing it because it's boring. Um, and then so push yourself to find like that extra level of dynamic and character relation to make it interesting and to make it fun to write. Because if it is fun to write, it will be fun to read.
Okay. I love that advice. And that is very helpful because I definitely read some books where I'm like, oof, they had to be bored writing this because I'm getting bored reading it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
well, where can people find you? Since I know you've got this one out, but you have
Yeah.
number two on the way. So, where can people find your stuff?
I, of course, have my website, www.mtzimny.com. Zimny has no E in it. Uh, just heads up. And then I am also on Instagram and Threads and TikTok, and technically Facebook, but not really, all under MT Zimny. Again, Zimny, no E. And I'm always happy to chat. So pop into my DMs if you have more questions.
Okay. And then remind us one more time, when is number two coming out?
Keldori By Daybreak will release on September 17th, 2026. I'm very
Okay.
excited.
Right around the corner.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me. And
Thank
I
you.
will see you at the next author barbecue, or when your new book comes out, I'll have to have you back on. So,
Perfect. Well, thanks, Brian.
alrighty, bye.